My name's Clark Gernon. I'm the president of the Baton Rouge Blues Foundation, which puts on the Blues Festival, and we also put on this event as well. And the way that we look at this event is an opportunity for us to capture some of the artists and kind of learn a little bit more about who they are as people. On stage, it's all about the show and the performance, and we want to kind of talk a little bit, just in more of a quiet setting where we can kind of learn a little bit about who they are and where they come from and why they do what they do. And so I'm really have a huge honor here today to join with us here, to be, actually this is my first interview I've ever done, which is actually, so I'm kind of new at this too, but my first interview is some very good friends of mine who I met here. Actually, they played the festival last year, I think for the first time in quite a few years. And we had a chance to catch up a little after the festival, actually, and we've been visiting and hanging out ever since a little bit. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Smokehouse Porter and Miss Mamie. Y'all will be playing tomorrow, I think it is, tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock at Swamp Blue Stage. So you'll have to come back and check them out tomorrow. But right now we want to just kind of visit with them a little bit and talk and just see kind of who they are and where they came from. And, you know, one thing I want to start off with here is that I think when we first met, you gave me one of your CDs, and it's something, it's a name that, frankly, as a fan of the blues, I wasn't necessarily sure if I knew that much about it, but your album's called King and the Queen of the Gut Bucket Blues. Right. And, you know, my first thought was like, I don't really know what a gut bucket is, actually. but it doesn't sound like a good thing necessarily. All that being said, it seemed like something that y'all take pride in, and you see something that has some good stuff there for you all. Maybe describe a little bit what that means to you all to be playing the Gut Bucket Blues.
Well, just like you said, I guess to a lot of people, it probably doesn't sound too good. But to us, the gut bucket is that raw blues. It's that blues that hits you right there in the gut. It's that blues that when you're traveling out on the highway and you hear the music, it's no doubt about it. You know that's the blues.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's the blues where a long time ago you had recording artists and just local musicians. They would sit down and they would just play that old time blues with with just a guitar and a vocalist. And every now and then you'd find somebody with a bass player or a drummer. So it wasn't about the big band thing, but it's just that blues, that raw blues, that kind of, when you ride down, like I say, and you hear the music, you can't confuse it with anything else. You know it's a blues.
Right. Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan of all kind of blues, certainly, and I know that these days a lot of folks really get into blues with a lot of pieces and a real big sound, maybe even more of even like rock has been incorporated a lot of blues performers. But what y'all saying, I know what you mean. Like it's sort of that really basic down home, we might say as well, right? It feels very like the way it's always been played a little bit.
Absolutely.
Do you think? Well, I don't know. Is it too soon to do this? But I might ask, like, maybe just tell us. Can you show us what a gut bucket song might sound like a little bit? A couple bars, maybe.
Well, yeah. This would be my version of it. Let's see something here. Okay. Bright lights, a big city, gone to my baby's head. Bright lights, a big city, gone to my baby's head. You gonna wish you had a listen to what I say. Go ahead, a pretty baby, you're gonna eat those words someday. Go ahead, a pretty baby, you're gonna eat those words someday. You're gonna wish you had a listen to what I say. I'm going up, I'm going down, I'm going up, down, any way you want me to roll. Yeah. right. You got me doing what you want, baby, what you want me to do.
Nice. That sounds like home right there, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I hear a song like that, and you know, we've heard so many blues artists here over the years, and at the Blues Festival here in Baton Rouge, and you know, we've got folks coming from all over the country, all over the world sometimes. I get a sense of there's a little bit of different vibe in every part of the world, and I guess in particular, obviously, the blues it's from the South, really, if not really from this part of the South in particular. It seems like every little area has like its own little style or whatever. Is that sound that you play there, is that the sound of Baton Rouge? Is that how Baton Rouge sounds? Like, I guess what I'm more kind of curious is that when we talk about the history we have here in Baton Rouge of blues, is that what you grew up hearing? Is that how everyone did their thing when you were young?
Well, that's what I grew up hearing. That's what I grew up hearing. Started as a little girl, listening to music that my dad would play around the house. I can remember a time that he came home with what they called 78s, those round records, the little hole in the middle, a tiny hole in the middle.
Yeah.
And my first experience hearing what we refer to as gut bucket was listening to Howlin' Wolf. Who's that? I think, Howlin' Wolf and Slim Harpo, you know, people like that. Yeah, that's what I was used to hearing.
But you know, I think also here in Baton Rouge, you got a lot of different type blues players. You got what we call the gut bucket blues. You got the Mississippi Delta blues, swamp blues. So it's a great variation. But I think blues is blues, and a lot of times people think blues is sad, but it's not all the time sad. I don't care what the music is. You're gonna have some music that brings you down, and you're gonna have something that's gonna
Bring
be
you up.
uplifting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's actually feels good to hear a song that kind of makes you feel something, and then if you're feeling bad, you can feel good. And sometimes it kind of gets you where like, well, you know what?
Yeah,
I should be glad for what I've got here because it's not
Absolutely.
always going to be good too.
absolutely. And I don't know how the stereotype came about with the blues being sad, because I don't care what type music it is, whether it's country, opera, you're gonna have some songs that'll bring you down and some songs that'll uplift you. And the blues is the same way. You can get out there, man. When I was a kid, they used to have these old time house parties and fish fries.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have a guy there with just a guitar and he's singing, and he'd have the whole house jumping. And it's blues, but it's uplifting blues.
Yeah.
What you describe is something that a lot of folks that are really into the blues today, they just don't know that's kind of how it was. Like now we've got clubs and lounges and venue halls and so on and festivals. But you know, years ago it was much more about like friends getting together and hanging out and having a good time. And you know, you might not have had I presume maybe you had a record player or you didn't. So someone had to play. If you're gonna have a party, you gotta have music, right? So.
It was a good time, and actually, when I was a kid, it used to happen quite a bit. You know, people in the neighborhood would be trying to raise rent money, and they would hire a guy that would come in, play a little blues, and it would maybe just be him and maybe a harmonica player. It wasn't a full band. but-
Fish fries, dinner
Yeah, and
parties.
they'd fry fish, and I mean, you talk about having a good time. It was a good time.
Well, I guess kind of now that we've kind of gone back to kind of when y'all were young, where did y'all grow up? Y'all from the Baton Rouge area, and kind of how was that like?
I'm from the great city of Scotlandville.
Scotlandville, all right.
And I was born and and lived for a few years in the South Baton Rouge area, and later moved to Scotlandville.
Okay, okay. In that area of town, they used to have fish fries in the neighborhood. You just kind of get together
All
and
the
hang out.
time. A lot of times people were very poor back in that time, and a lot of times, unemployment was pretty high, and people would actually have fish fries and stuff just to raise money to pay the rent.
Right.
And it was actually all about surviving. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But fun.
But fun. a lot of fun.
So I guess kind of if I'm going back to that, and so I guess probably y'all would have been young kids and y'all experienced that kind of stuff. I guess, is there a time where you remember the first time you had a fish fry or a rent party and you really thought, this is something that I really feel connected to, beyond just like something to do or because your parents were there or your family was there, whatever it was, but something you said, I really feel kind of connected to this and I want to consider maybe playing this. I want to grow up and play this a little bit too. Was there a time when that really kind of came to mind for you all in particular?
You want to answer? The area I lived in, I grew up on a dead-end street. And just so happened, there was a guy that lived next door to us. And he was actually from Mississippi. And he would sit on the porch, he'd work, I guess, hard every day. I don't know what he did for a living. But then he would sit out on that porch and he'd be picking that guitar, and the kids in the neighborhood, we all would sit out and listen to him. And right then, I knew that's one of the things that I wanted to do. And my family was very poor, but my mom and dad, they kind of always wanted my sisters, my brother, and I to be in music. So what they did, they scraped up, and they actually gave me piano lessons.
Wow.
But I wasn't interested in playing the piano. So when you ain't interested in doing something,
It won't happen.
Well, when I was growing up, my dad would have different ones to listen to me and my sisters sing. He thought had great harmony together, and so we would sing around the house. We would create songs. We would just make music, and because most of the people that we would sing in front of always complimented us on the way we harmonized, and so I guess starting from a child, I just, developed that interest. I had a strong interest in, wanting to be a singer. I wanted to, confront an audience. That was my dream. And finally, one day it did come true.
It's something that, I just love hearing those kind of stories because we all have stories of the things that we just connect with in this world. And those are the things where we really shine and excel. And I know a lot of the fans of music, they're big fans because they don't know how to get there, but they know that they love it when they hear it. And it's really nice when you hear a story like that where it's something that you want to do it and you just go do it. And it's really a great thing. One thing we're talking about kind of the old times and kind of the way it was and when you're growing up. I'm kind of curious as to how did you kind of get in, how did you go from like just being at the fresh fries and the parties and whatnot and actually going to actually playing in a band and making a few dollars? How did that start out for you all?
Well, for me, like I said, just hearing the guy next door to me play music, and I actually started kind of fooling with a bass guitar. And they had some other young guys in the neighborhood, and we were young, and we called ourselves putting together a little band. We couldn't play but 3 blind mice and that kind of stuff. So just joking there, but.
So what was the band's name, by the way? Do you know it?
You know what? I don't even know. But, we never made any gigs, right. But we'd sit around and we'd try to make a little music. But as I started getting older and I started running into other guys that played music, then I knew, that actually this is what I want to do. I guess as I started getting much older, before then, I was kind of in and out. I'd fool with the guitar a while, fool with bass a while. And I guess just being around some of the other guys that was doing it all the time. And I guess then I just really fell in love with the music and with the art of playing music. And so I knew then that that's what I want to do.
Well, in my case, my first experience performing with the band was when I lived in Chicago, Illinois. There was this guy that asked if I would sing a song with him. He was going to bring on Seal Johnson, which was a pretty well-known name in the Chicago area. And I really enjoyed it, and later moved home to Baton Rouge. And because I had some stage experience in front of an audience up north, I met Smokehouse. Well, I knew Smokehouse before I left to go to Chicago because we were in high school together. But when I got back home, he was playing with a band here in Baton Rouge called the 501 Band, and he knew that I could sing, and he asked if I would sing on a show that the 501 Band was preparing for. And hey, it was like right down my alley because I love singing, and I just thought that it would be a great idea, and that was my first time experiencing singing blues. And before blues, I was doing R&B and jazz, but when I got a taste of what it was like in front of a blues audience, I said, that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm doing now.
That's fantastic. So I know Smokehouse, we've talked before, and I don't know if this was the first time that, and I'm not sure if y'all were in the band together at the time, but talk a little bit about your connection to W.W. Woolfolk.
I met Woolfolk back in the 90s. A good friend of mine, Tabby Thomas, had a club over there on North Boulevard. And I was playing over there that night, and W.W. Woolfolk come in. And I didn't know who he was, but come to find out, he's the one that built the upstairs portion in Tabby's club. And so he come in and he heard me playing. And so he told me, after I finished playing, he said, look here, boy. He said, I want you to play with me at the Blues Fest. And I didn't know who in the world he was. I just said, okay. And I didn't think much of it. And I didn't really see him a lot after that. And then, bless behold, I think it was getting close to Blues Fest time. He come back in there, and just so happened I was playing again. And he said, look, boy, he said, I told you you're going to be playing with me. And so I started playing with Woolfolk.
Wow.
Yeah.
He played quite a few blues festivals. So you all you played the Blues Fest in a different form way back in the 90s and before that too? Or was that where you first played the Blues Fest?
That was the first time I played with him, yeah.
So there's a song that y'all do that I thought we're kind of getting right about 10 minutes left here, but I thought it would be fun if y'all are up for it. It's a song talking about it talks about your love of the history of some of the friends and mentors you all had from the Baton Rouge blues scene, and it's a song "If I Had My Way," which I really really love the fact that y'all are tip your hat, so to speak, to these great folks from our past. Maybe you talk a little bit about that song and maybe play a little piece if you can.
We can give it a shot. You want to talk about the song?
Well, I was inspired to write that song after Guitar Kelly passed. I had a relationship with him through Smokehouse, and actually, I started to feel toward him, in other words, though he was a father to me also, and he was like encouragement. He would, tell me to keep up the singing, don't stop, and don't change my style. And I mean, I was just inspired after the loss of Guitar Kelly. I just formed a close relationship with him also. And yes, we'll sing the song. I'll sing the song.
He's a big part of our history here. He and Silas Hogan, which I think you referred to as well. And it's something that I know from the foundation perspective, we work to try and make sure that their work that they've done, the contribution they've made to all of us is felt. So when I heard the song, I love it. I love it.
We're going to see what we can do with it.
Right.
If I had my way, I'd call blues heaven on my cell phone. If I had my way, I'd call blues heaven on my cell phone. I'd tell Silas Hogan and Guitar Kelly, come on home. And if I had my way, and if Slim Harpo could read my mind, if I had my way, and if Chuck Mitchell could read my mind, I'd love to hear them sing those down-home blues one more time. And if I had my way, I would go back to those old smoke-filled juke joints. If I had my way, I would go back to those old smoke-filled juke joints. Where those old blues men are present, 'cause I know their spirits are still there. And if I had my way, I'd call blues heaven on my cell phone. If I had my way, I would call blues heaven on my cell phone. I would tell Silas Hogan and Guitar Kelly, come on home. Take it on home.
Fantastic. Beautiful. We got about 5 minutes left here, so I just want to make sure everyone knows that y'all will be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and you'll be playing on the Swamp Blue stage from 4 to 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. And I'm looking forward to seeing y'all again. Actually, when y'all played last year, I was running around. I didn't get a chance to see you play, but this time I'll make sure I make a little time.
Check us out. As a matter of fact, you need to come up and do something with us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh,
Well, I'll tell
yeah.
you, at this point, if there's any questions from the audience, we can certainly ask them right now. But I've really enjoyed hearing y'all tell about your history. And I honestly think we could keep on going talking. I think we'd be fine, but our time's out. So anyway, any questions real quick before I wrap it up? Smokehouse Porter, Miss Mamie, thank you so much for giving us a little time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.